You look at the whiteboard in your office and the top line revenue number is just massive.
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
Right. It is your biggest year yet. You and the crew are working harder than ever. Projects are moving. Money is changing hands.
Everyone's busy.
Exactly. But then you look at the actual bank account at the end of the month, and there's this agonizing disconnect. Where did all the money go?
Yeah, the revenue's there, but the profit just isn't matching the physical effort you're putting in.
And that is our mission for today's deep dive. We are talking directly to you.
Specifically, those of you running construction businesses in the $1 million to $10 million range.
Right. You're scaling, you're growing, but you feel like you are hitting a wall, like an invisible profit cap.
It's so common.
Yeah.
It really is the great paradox of the construction industry. We are completely obsessed with top-line revenue.
Because it looks good.
It looks great on paper. We celebrate the gross numbers because they feel like growth. But, it is the bottom line margin that actually dictates whether a company survives, scales, or just slowly suffocates under its own weight.
Slowly suffocates. That's a grim image, but it's true. So today, we're cracking open a stack of financial white papers, real-world case studies, and some really detailed market intelligence reports.
To extract the exact insights you need.
Yeah. We're going to transform your pricing strategy from a total guessing game into a data-driven engine and show you how to unlock 15% or even more in additional net profit.
Without drowning in administrative work, which is key.
Totally.
Because when you enter that $1 to $10 million phase, the sheer complexity of the business changes. You cannot just outwork your pricing problems anymore by putting in more hours. You have to outsmart them.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our documentation points out a massive foundational hole where money is just bleeding out of these businesses.
Before hammer even swings.
Right. And it starts with a pricing model that feels safe, but acts like, an artificial ceiling on your growth. Cost plus pricing?
Yeah, cost plus.
Let's look at the mechanics here. If I'm a contractor, cost plus feels like the most transparent, logical way to do business. I add up my lumber, my labor, and I slap a standard percentage on top.
Say 20%.
Yeah, 20%. And I hand that to the client. Why is that capping my growth?
Well, think about the underlying logic of what you just described. Let's say you bid a bathroom remodel. You estimate it'll take 5 days, costing $10,000 in materials and labor.
Okay, simple enough.
You add your 20% markup, so your profit is $2,000. But let's say your crew gets incredibly efficient.
Which is what you want, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You find a better way to source the tile, your team finishes the job in 3 days instead of 5, and your total cost drops to $8,000.
So my costs go down, which sounds like a good thing.
It is a good thing for the client, but disastrous for your growth under that model, because your profit is just a fixed 20% of your cost.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, your actual profit dollar amount just dropped from $2,000 to $1,600.
Because I was faster.
You got punished for being efficient. You are literally incentivizing yourself to be slow and expensive. And, relying solely on this model can cost contractors up to 10% in lost profit margin on every single project.
That is wild. It reminds me of driving a heavy-duty truck with the parking brake on. You're burning out the engine. You're consuming massive amounts of fuel just to move forward at a crawl.
That's a perfect analogy.
But what is making that brake stick so hard? The documentation points heavily to a massive blind spot in calculating what's called true overhead.
Yes, the silent killers.
We're talking about an 8 to 12% chunk of operational costs that just vanishes from the ledger entirely. How are experienced 20-year veteran contractors consistently missing an 8 to 12% chunk of their own overhead?
Because they're suffering from optimism bias. They are pricing for a perfect world.
Meaning what exactly?
When they calculate their costs, their mind naturally gravitates toward the physical, tangible items. They think about the concrete, the drywall.
The direct hourly wages.
Exactly, the guys on site. But they miss the ballooning costs of software subscriptions. Estimating software, CRM platforms, accounting tools.
Right.
They miss the time spent on professional development and training. And the biggest silent killer of all, strategic downtime.
Strategic downtime. Walk me through exactly what that looks like on a Tuesday afternoon.
It looks like a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
It rains for 3 days straight. Your exterior crew is sitting idle, but you still have to pay the commercial insurance on those trucks sitting in the lot.
Oh, man. Yeah.
It's the time spent maintaining heavy equipment in the shop. It's the 2 hours your crew spends driving between job sites picking up materials.
And if you don't bake those inevitable indirect costs into your baseline pricing,
You are essentially paying for them out of your own pocket, out of your profit. Pricing for a perfect world where nothing goes wrong is a critical error. Real growth requires pricing for reality.
here's where it gets really interesting. Once a business patches that foundational leak and figures out its true baseline costs, the entire conversation with the client has to change.
Completely.
You have to stop selling costs to protect those margins and start selling value.
This is the necessary paradigm shift. If you hand a client a line item breakdown of every nail, screw, and 2x4, you are inviting them to argue with you about the price of nails.
It's turning yourself into a commodity.
Exactly. The client starts thinking, well, I saw lumber cheaper at the big box store.
Right.
But if you shift to value-based pricing, you're commanding a premium for the outcome. The peace of mind, the superior quality you deliver. You aren't selling wood, you are selling a flawless kitchen delivered on time.
So let's put numbers to that. Say you have a $100,000 project. If you just list materials, you get your standard margin. But how does value-based pricing actually yield more dollars in the bank? Does the client just happily pay more because you use the word value?
Not just because of the word, but because of the framing. By highlighting your unique benefits, like your daily communication guarantee, your extended 2-year warranty,
Yeah.
or the fact that your crew cleans the job site immaculately every single evening. You differentiate yourself from the guy down the street.
That makes sense.
And on a $100,000 project, shifting this perception can yield an extra $10,000 in pure profit. Not because the materials changed, but because the client's perception of the risk decreased. They are paying a premium for certainty.
Which is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
But that brings up a tactical issue. How do you systematically present that value to the client without overwhelming them with a massive sales pitch?
You use the good, better, best tiered pricing structure.
Oh,
Instead of giving them one massive take it or leave it proposal, you give them 3 distinct packages.
it's the car wash menu effect. When you pull up to the car wash, you see the basic wash, the deluxe with the wax, and the ultimate detail package.
Exactly.
Giving people structured choices makes them feel empowered as buyers. They get to be in the driver's seat rather than just feeling like they're being handed a massive non-negotiable bill.
And the results are undeniable. When you offer these 3 distinct packages, you typically see the average project value jump by 10 to 12%.
Wow.
And overall conversion rates get a boost of up to 20%.
Okay, let me push back on this for a second. If you offer a good tier, which is obviously your cheapest option, doesn't that risk the client just racing to the bottom?
Meaning they just pick the cheapest one?
Yeah. Won't they just choose the cheapest option every single time to save a buck?
It's a totally valid concern, but the psychology of the buyer actually works in the exact opposite direction. Yeah. When you only offer one price, the client's internal dialogue is, should I hire this contractor or should I go get 3 more bids from competitors? It's a yes or no question.
Right, they're looking for an out.
But the moment you present 3 tiered options on a single page, their internal dialogue instantly shifts to which level of service should I hire this contractor for?
Oh, that's smart. They're already assuming they're going to hire you.
Exactly. Now they're just deciding how much they want to spend.
So the tiers actually eliminate the competition from their mind.
Precisely. Furthermore, most people inherently want to avoid the bottom tier because they perceive it as lacking or bare bones.
Yeah, nobody wants the cheap wash.
Right. But they also might not want to splurge on the absolute top tier, so they naturally gravitate toward the middle, the better option, which you have strategically priced to hit your ideal profit margin.
That is brilliant. But to build those profitable tiers in the first place, you can't just pull numbers out of thin air. You need to know exactly what the current market will bear.
And that means abandoning old gut feelings and relying on precise, real-time intelligence.
Yeah, bidding on a massive commercial project without knowing the current market rates is like playing high-stakes poker without looking at your own hand. You're just throwing chips on the table and hoping the other guys fold.
Without a doubt. If you're going to command a premium, you have to deeply understand the landscape you're operating in. You need to know what a premium actually looks like in your specific zip code.
And this is where the tools come into play. Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report reveals the average market rates for specific services.
Yes.
You can actually see what is happening in real time down to your specific region, rather than relying on an industry average from 2 years ago.
What's fascinating here is the speed of this intelligence. We are talking about having real-time visibility into competitor pricing trends, regional demand fluctuations, and exact material costs.
It's a game changer.
It completely transforms the identity of the business. You evolve from a reactive, defensive bidder.
Just trying to blindly match the lowest guy in town.
Right, to win the job.
Yeah.
You evolve from that into a proactive market strategist.
You know exactly where you can push your margins higher because the regional demand supports it. And you know where you need to tighten up your operational efficiency to remain competitive.
But, winning that bid at the right price is really only half the battle.
Oh, for sure.
The next, and arguably harder step, is defending and expanding that margin once the project is actually in flight.
Because that is when the chaos starts. The heat is dry, the work begins, and suddenly, reality hits.
Every time.
The client wants to change the tile, the framing takes an extra 2 days, the price of copper spikes. This is where margins go to die.
But it's also where margins can grow if you handle it correctly.
Yeah.
Natural upselling and cross-selling during a project can easily add 5 to 8% to a project's revenue.
Really? 5 to 8%.
Yep, without spending a single extra dime on client acquisition. You already have the client. You're already mobilized on the site.
I have to ask, though, how do you actually do that? How do you introduce an upsell mid-project without coming across like a sleazy salesperson trying to nickel and dime the client at every turn?
It comes down to anticipating their needs before they even articulate them. You aren't inventing things to charge them for. You are offering solutions to problems they're just discovering.
Give me an example.
Let's say you're doing a massive kitchen remodel and you have the walls open down to the studs. It is not sleazy to suggest upgrading the insulation or running extra conduit for future smart home tech.
Oh, I see.
It's actually a professional disservice not to offer it, because it will be 10 times more expensive for them to do it later once the drywall is closed.
And to make those calls, to offer those smart upgrades, you need flawless tracking. You can't offer an upgrade if you don't even know where your baseline budget currently stands.
Exactly. You need a digital tripwire.
That is why using the Smart Business Automator platform allows leadership to dynamically track budget variance, identify schedule bottlenecks, and catch scope creep in real time.
And catching scope creep is arguably the most vital margin protection skill.
It really is.
Scope creep is the silent death of 1,000 cuts. A client walks onto the site and says, "Hey, while you're at it, can you just add an extra outlet over here?"
And contractors without real-time visibility will often just say, sure, to keep the peace.
Because they're terrified of losing the client's goodwill. They think, it's just an outlet, it'll take 20 minutes.
But it isn't 20 minutes.
No. It requires the electrician to stay an extra hour. It requires extra wire. It requires modifying the breaker. Suddenly, that free favor just ate the entire net profit for that specific room.
Yikes.
But when you're tracking variance dynamically, you see the cost impact instantly,
Yeah.
which feeds directly into your negotiation power.
The walkaway price.
Yes, the absolute necessity of establishing a minimum viable profit margin before you ever start talking changes.
Right.
True negotiation power doesn't come from aggressive tactics or pounding the table or being difficult with the client. It comes from the quiet confidence of knowing exactly what your absolute profit floor is.
That's a great point.
When, down to the dollar, where a job stops being profitable, you can firmly but politely draw a boundary.
Yeah.
You say, we would love to add that outlet. Here is the change order for the cost.
You never take on a losing job, and you never give away your margin for free.
Exactly.
So you've defended the margin on this one specific project, you captured the upsell, you held the line on scope creep, but how do you keep that margin from eroding next year when the whole market shifts?
Right.
How do you protect this new profit model from rotting over time?
That is the long game. Pricing is a living, breathing thing. It's not something you carve into stone, put in a binder, and forget about for 5 years.
And to stay on top of it, conducting pricing audits every 6 to 12 months is mandatory. This isn't just a suggestion, it's a survival tactic. Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report indicates that material costs can wildly fluctuate by 5 to 15% annually.
It's crazy.
Let's do the math on that. If your material costs are creeping up by 15% over a year and your pricing menu is staying totally static,
Your entire net profit margin just got wiped out while you were sleeping.
Unbelievable.
And this isn't just theory. We have a concrete case study that proves exactly how powerful this continuous rhythm is. We're looking at a $5 million contractor who completely overhauled their system.
Let's look at their specific journey. They were stuck in the cost-plus trap. They were bleeding that 8 to 12% in hidden overhead, and they were giving away margin to scope creep.
Classic scenario.
Yeah. So they implemented these exact strategies: tracking true overhead, establishing good, better, best value tiers, utilizing real-time market intelligence, and committing to regular pricing audits.
And the results were massive.
Over 18 months, they saw a 3 percentage point leap in their net profit margin. Now, for a $5 million business, that translates directly to an extra $150,000 in pure annual profit.
Incredible.
So what does this all mean? Look, I'll be honest, 18 months feels like a long time to wait for a 3-point bump. If the math is so clear, why doesn't this overhaul happen overnight?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to realize that systematically changing the pricing structure in a $5 million business is like turning a massive cargo ship.
Right.
Think of your existing signed contracts as the anchor and your current sales team as the crew. If you jerk the wheel too hard, the ship tears apart.
That makes total sense. You have a pipeline of leads who were quoted old prices. You can't just call them up and increase the bid 20% without causing a mutiny.
Exactly. You have to retrain your sales crew to sell value instead of line item costs. You have to slowly pull up the anchor on those old contracts and phase them out.
It takes time.
You have to educate your returning client base on the new tiered system. The momentum builds slowly, day by day, bid by bid, change order by change order.
Yeah.
But the beauty is, once that massive ship has finally turned, it results in permanent, sustainable growth rather than just a fleeting cash grab.
Yeah.
It builds an impenetrable moat around your business operations.
It really does. We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We talked about abandoning the artificial ceiling of cost plus pricing that punishes you for efficiency.
Yep.
We dug into capturing that missing 8 to 12% of true overhead. The software, the insurance, the strategic downtime.
All the silent killers.
We walked through the psychology of the good, better, best tiered value pricing to empower the buyer, and the absolute necessity of tracking your budget variance and your market data dynamically to protect your margin mid-flight.
It's a complete evolution of how a contractor operates. But it does leave us with something provocative to think about for the future.
And it's that.
As these data platforms become more advanced, this raises an important question. If AI platforms eventually optimize every single contractor's pricing and risk detection perfectly, what becomes the ultimate competitive differentiator?
Oh, wow.
Right. Will perfect pricing and flawless budget tracking just become table stakes, forcing contractors to abandon the math completely and compete entirely on the emotional client experience? It is something to consider as you build out your foundational models today.
It is a fascinating thought. The math gets solved perfectly by the software, so the human element, the trust, the communication, the empathy, that becomes the only premium left to charge for.
Exactly.
Well, if you know a contractor who is dealing with shrinking margins and a profit cap, send them this episode. It could help them unlock that 15% missing profit.
Don't let your business be the heavy-duty truck driving with the parking brake on. Take off the brake.
Patch the leaks, build the tiers, and start actually keeping the money you are working so incredibly hard to make. Hit follow on whatever app you're listening on so you don't miss tomorrow's intel. And to learn more about the tools we discussed today, visit smartbusinessautomator.com. We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.